All right, one of my favorite creators here on YouTube is Kayla from Books and Lala. She does the Literally Dead Book Club, where she picks a horror thriller book and reads it that month and then discusses it on a live show with her audience. It's wonderful. And this month's book was the third book in the Finlay Donovan series. And we have been given so much notice that it was going to be the third book in the series, coming up eventually, and to catch up on the rest of the series. Guess who did not read the first two books in the series until the day before the release of the third book? So, this is my reactions to the first two books, starting with not very happy, but wanting to get through because I want to take part in the discussions in the comment section of the live show and just see what everyone's thoughts were, and I want to understand what's going on. So cut to me reading the first book. All right, first check-in, 25-ish% in, and I gotta say I'm regretting my decision to start and committing, hopefully, to finishing or getting caught up with the series. So, first, I was completely wrong on what this series was even about. I thought Finlay got confused for a hitman and then went to the police, said, hey, someone hired me to be a hitman. I'm not a hitman. Like, what do I do? And they had her go undercover and then was trying to get evidence on the person who wanted the hit. I don't know why I thought that. Probably because I've seen that plot line in a true crime documentary. But instead, she is just committed to the idea. Well, not committed to the idea at this stage, but she's like, you know what? Let me just snoop this guy out and see what's going on, and snowballs into, I'm not doing spoilers, so like snowballs into a bunch of crazy stuff going on. And it is very quirky, which when done right, not even done right, in certain occasions I can find enjoyment in reading that quirky kind of plot and dialogue, but right now I'm not enjoying it. So she's a single mom, her messy divorce, the kids are very small, young age, and they're driving me crazy. They're quite annoying. The dialogue is beyond cringy. The babysitter slash roommate is all for this. And I'm just like, you gotta have some kind of backstory that I'm sure will be explored later. And I'm just, it's a little too over the top. It's a little bit too try hard to be quirky and funny. And I'm not the biggest fan at this 20-25% mark. The dialogue alone is really turning me off. But I'm not hating the premise and the idea. I think I just got to turn my brain off a little bit more and accept the fact that things are happening because plot needs to happen. Like, oh, isn't that convenient that this situation just presented itself so the plot can continue? And that's all I gotta say for this first check-in. All right, completely eating my words because I'm obsessed with this book and this series. So I've been cleaning the apartment all day, and I've just had the audiobook going, and by about the 50% mark, I was 100% hooked. Leaning into the, not even cheesiness factor, the obscenity of it, and just how insane the plot and ridiculous it is. Yeah, just leaned heavy into it, had a wild ride. It was one of those train crash books that you can't look away from, and it was beautiful and wonderful. Love these characters, love the insane plot. Overall, like, close as I can get to 5 stars, but I can't just because of the beginning. So it did take me till the halfway point to get hooked on this book. And some of the dialogue still drove me a little bit crazy, but I finished this book today, loved it. And the ending, oh my god, that ending. I am so happy that Scribd had the second book, Finlay Donovan is Killing It, or no, that's the first book, sorry. Finlay Donovan Knocks Him Dead, available right away, because with that ending, I had to know what was happening next. 100% needed to know. So if you are going to buy the first book, have the second one ready to go. Because if you're at all interested in the first book, you're going to want the second immediately. And tomorrow, the third book is going to be released. I am 25% into Finlay Donovan Knocks Dead, and absolutely loving it. We've introduced another possible killer. They're going after. I don't want to even say what's going after, even though it says it in the synopsis, because if you don't know how the first one ends and you know nothing about the second, I don't want to say what the plot of the second one is. We're going more into the babysitter and roommate's backstory. I think. I know she's hiding something. And I am just so very excited for how this book is going to continue. But I love this series. I love this series so much. I might need to talk spoilers. At the end of this, I think I'm going to have a whole spoiler part at the end, and just to say how ridiculous everything is, because I love it. Alright, check in later. I love Vera. She's a delight. I take back everything bad I've ever said about her through this series. Alright, I finished the sequel last night, had an absolute blast. I'm loving this series. So, unpopular opinion, I think, because I like the sequel even more than the original. Whereas the first book, it took me till the halfway point to really get into it. There was cringy dialogue. It was so over the top, so many plot conveniences to get them in the situation for the plot to happen, that it was driving me a little crazy in the first book, up till about the 50% point. But then I just accepted it. The humor works, the characters were fantastic. I love the action. I love how over the top everything was. I loved how unrealistic, over dramatic things could be, and how everything just snowballed and got worse. I loved it. And from the beginning of the second one, I felt that way. It was a clean transition, picking right up where we left off in the last book. We're building onto the characters. We're introducing new characters. We're exploring them, some depth to them. They don't feel like cardboard cutouts, nothing like that. I have genuine hope that this will actually become very, not complex narrative, but the story narrative will be more intentional and thought out and deep than I initially thought this series was going to go. Like, I really like the structure of this second book and how it plays into the books that she's writing, and the impacts that, like, the editor and agent are saying, like, this character's been gone off for this one. Oh, she gotta choose between these two. Kill one of them. I don't care. Like, little things that they're saying, I feel is planting for what's going to happen in her real life, and it's just working so well. I love the inclusion of the mob elements. That was already in the first book, but it just played up a little bit more, and I am a sucker for introducing, like, the mob kind of element to a story. I blame that on the Dresden Files, because I love that element there. And now the ending of this book, once again, this series is just nailing the endings and leaving me hooked and wanting the next one. So I finished the second book and absolutely love the ending. I need to know what happened next. So goes out on lunch break, because it is now the 31st, and go to Starbucks, grab a coffee, and picks up the audiobook, or I download the audiobook for the third book that just got released. Finlay Donovan jumps the gun. I am so excited. Lunch break, I was listening to this, and from the beginning, we're picking right up where we left off, maybe a little bit of a time jump, not too much. And I'm already hooked. I am loving it so very much. I am finishing it tonight. So I gotta work tomorrow, but not till the afternoon, so I can go to sleep 2 o'clock in the morning if I need to. I'm finishing this book tonight. So it's been about a month since I filmed those clips, and I did finish the third book that night. Didn't take me till 2 o'clock in the morning, but stayed up pretty late to finish it. And I filmed a review for that book in that time. Go to that video for spoiler-free thoughts, because we're talking spoilers now. And I am realizing that I did not do any kind of check-in after that first 25% point, not even after I finished it, to say what my immediate thoughts were upon finishing that book. Because I was trying to find some nice things to say, other than I was just really bored. And that is not something I wanted to say about the ending of, or the third book in this series. There will be a fourth book. I'm excited for the fourth book. I I'm going with the wasted potential of what I personally wanted this series and the direction for it to go into would have been. So, keeping with the spoiler themes, what I wanted was after getting bribed essentially by, I think, the Russian mafia, I wanted her to have to go into the Russian mafia organization and search for clues of who the second hitman was, um, while actively, more or less, either working for the boss guy or using his name at least, kind of thing, and having to interact with other hitmans and criminal organization people, go to the casinos where a loan shark buddy is currently threatening our Vera character that we love, and threaten him using Russian mafia guy's name. Like, that's what I want. I want craziness of her in the mafia. I am biased for liking the mafia story. So instead of that, we're just in a citizen police academy, and I have honestly forgotten the entirety of the plot, because it's just a will they, won't they romance, and some investigation on trying to find who's blackmailing the mafia guy, compared to like the previous book where she disguised herself as a lawyer and broke into a police station and to talk to said Russian mafia guy. How do we go from that craziness to I'm going to hide behind a door at because I broke into this office to try to get some evidence that this cop is dirty? I was so let down. This is a personal opinion, obviously. Preferences were not in line with this book. I have honestly forgotten the entirety of the plot, but the ending, in a true Finlay Donovan fashion, sets up that I'm excited for the next book. So we at least have that going for us. Yeah. I cannot believe how much I love this series, and I would not expect it after the first book. Because, like I said, the first book was a struggle to get through the first half. It was so annoying. It was try-hard, quirky. I was hating the dialogue. The plot was so full of plot conveniences to set up the premise and to get the plot actually moving. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't turn my brain off this hard. The dialogue, especially, was cringe-worthy bad. And then, in my opinion, obviously, then the halfway point, something clicked. And I'm just like, I love this character. I am obsessed. This is just the most fun time, the most ridiculous story that I've read, and I'm loving it. I had such a blast with the first book. Now, and then the second book, I love from page 1 to the last page. It, cover to cover, beautiful, would not change a word. I think that might be an unpopular opinion. I think the first book is normally the most loved among the fans, and the second one just being kind of middle book, kind of okay. I loved the second book. I loved it so very much. Now, I do want to talk about why I loved the first two books so much, but the third book was a little bit lacking to me. So yeah, going into spoilers, I'm probably not going to go heavy into spoilers, but it's definitely more information than I would want going into this book. Like, I'm going to talk specifics. So cut away now if you plan to read the series, or jump to the next time stamp that I got made. Okay, so talking about Finlay Donovan is killing it, I would pretty much describe the entirety of this plot as simply playing like the word game kind of where you say, and then X happens. So Finlay Donovan is talking to her manager and is overheard by a random person behind her who thinks she's a hitman, and then hires her to do a job. Finlay Donovan doesn't want to do the job, but she wants to see who this man is that possibly someone that the wife wants dead. And then he accidentally dies. And then she has to find a way to clear her name. And then someone else finds out and gets wrapped into all these things. And then she gets hired for a second hitman job. And then she can't back out because he is working for the mob. And he tries to kill her. And then you see how everything just snowballs. The plot builds and builds on top of each other. It gets more and more ridiculous as something crazy happens, and yet somehow it all works together in the plot. It is just fast-paced, hectic, crazy, and it just works so well. The second book, which, again, my favorite, is, I would describe it more as a so she has to. The end of the first book is pretty much, and then she finds out someone has put a hit out on her ex-husband, so she has to find out who this second hitman is that's accepted the job, and also has to find out who placed the job. Except the husband doesn't custody battles, so she wants to protect her children, so she has to keep her children away from her husband, who's the target of a hitman. So she has to then accept the job as being a hitman to kill her own ex-husband in order to more or less get more information and keep him safe. So then she has to reach out to the Russian mafia that she met in the first book. So then she has to steal a car. So then she has to get close to this police detective. So then, like, she's a little bit more active in this book. It's not so much the plot acting on her, but it's just as crazy, and she keeps having to get herself into more crazy situations in order to protect her ex-husband and find out who this second hitman is. It's a great mystery. I love the ending. I love the characters. And as much as I loved the and then this happened kind of plot, it was a lot of plot conveniences happening to her. Whereas in the second book, it's so she has to kind of plot. So she puts herself in actively choosing to get into these more and more crazy situations. Granted, she doesn't have much of a choice, but ridiculous choices are made. And then the third book happens. And I can't even tell you the plot of it because I was bored. I was so bored and I was upset. You get a craziness that happens and you're back into the, and this crazy thing happens for the first like 20% of it, but then we're just in the police station. So she's after the identity of the second hitman who, or I think it's the second hitman, I don't care, honestly. That's blackmailing the Russian mafia guy. So it's just like her looking for this person, but it's not as crazy. It's far more romance specific. I don't care about the cop romance. So the plot just didn't have the same building vibe that the first two had, in my opinion. I could be very wrong. Now, what I was talking about before with the book being a lot smarter in the second book than I was really giving it credit for in the first. So the editors keep making all these little notes to her because I didn't mention this about the first book. She's blocked, writer's block, doesn't know what to write, so she starts writing out all the events that are happening to her and how crazy everything's getting, and then she just changes a few little tiny things and sends that to the editor. So the editor more or less has a confession of all this murder that is happening in her life, just vaguely changed just enough so she wouldn't get caught with it if it was published, thinking it's going to be no big deal, but the editor loves it and sells it to another publisher. And they're all these writing back like, hey, maybe this lawyer and this cop, like you got to pick one of them, and we're tired of this love triangle, kill one of them off or something. And I'm thinking that it is related back to the lawyer and the cop in the real life. I'm thinking the plot is going to kill off one of these characters. So I thought it was really good examples of like subtle foreshadow, not even subtle, honestly, but foreshadowing of what could happen in her real life based on the editor's notes. And I'm so disappointed that some of it kind of played in, but not really. And I may have been giving the plot, a little bit too much credit in that second book, thinking of how it could play off in the third. But I think it has the potential to have like a really smart interwoven plot line. And I do want to reread the first two books. Not really interested in rereading the third before the fourth one comes out, whenever it will. Because I think if I just take this as a, hey, we focus a bit more on romance and to get the plot where we want it to be for the fourth, I think I can kind of just skip the third book and be like, yeah, I know the vague vibes of what happens and how we get here. And I'm really excited to see what the author does with the plot itself. So that is my reaction to these three books. I had such an amazing time with the first two. And I'm so happy I read this. I'm so happy it was the choice for the Literally Dead Book Club. I had a blast. I really, really did. I didn't hate the third book at all. It was a fast-paced read. Really, it was. It's just a very average 3-star that I didn't really feel kept with the vibe of the first two, in my opinion. It still had the same comedy, but it wasn't as over the top plot wise as I wanted. But not bad. It was an average 3-star for me. But I will check in later. I will talk to you later. Bye.